Welcome to Product Academy Tough Stuff, the podcast where we cut through the noise and get straight to the toughest challenges in product management. I'm Tanya Lau.
And I'm Francesca Cortesi.
In each episode, we tackle one tough question. No fluff, no filler. Just candid insights from seasoned product leaders.
Our guests deliver actionable, real-world answers. Whether you're an experienced product leader or just stepping into the product world, this is your go-to podcast for sharp, tested advice, condensed for your busy schedule.
One tough challenge, practical insights, short and real.
Let's dive in. We product people, we are so geared towards success. But what happens when reality hits us and things do not go our way? Our guests today have some incredible insights on how to act when, shit hits the fan. Welcome to the show, Pippa.
Hi, Francesca.
So glad to have you here because you have an incredible experience. In your long career as product leader, you have been in a situation that I would paint as really, really difficult. You need to make your team and yourself redundant. And I would say it doesn't get worse than that when it comes to handling shit hitting your way. How did you deal with it?
Yeah, it wasn't the easiest time in my career, let's put it that way. I think firstly, it didn't all happen overnight. So there's like a gradual build up of things are going a bit wrong I won't go into great detail, but the market, I was in energy switching technology and platform. The energy market basically crashed. And so if you think about people who switch their energy tariffs are doing it to save money, all the tariffs that we had were more expensive than anything in the market. And then suppliers just didn't want to acquire. So effectively, we had a shop that was empty, so we were not making any revenue in that space. As a result, then we were quickly thinking about what can we do to sort of pivot. But when your whole market is crashing, it's very difficult to pivot to something quickly and sort of try out a new market or anything like that. So I could see, and because I sat on the exec, I could see what was coming down the road. And there are two sort of parts of the brain that are going on as a product leader. There's I really want to make sure that we save the product or we save the business or we can get ourselves out of this mess. And then there's this other part that's just very empathetic about the members of your team and what's about to happen. So there was a combination of what's the right thing to do, and then when I'm thinking about what the right thing is to do, who is the right thing to do, who is it right for, and that's really challenging because you also know potentially by slimming down a team and the environment you're going to be leaving behind is going to be really tough. So no one's a winner in redundancy. The ones who are going to be made redundant have to go and find a new job. And then the ones who are left behind have to pick up the pieces and maybe work harder than they've worked before, but not with that lovely feeling wrapped around them. So a big part of my consideration was what's within my control and what's without my control. I think those are sort of the main things. And the thing that comes up time and time again whenever there are difficult things to deal with, right? So sometimes things can feel so insurmountable that you kind of question, almost let your ego get in the way, if that makes sense. So you start thinking, oh God, I should be able to pull us out of this because I should be such a great leader. I can fix all these problems. And the reality is there's so much out of your control in product. We often, and I've been guilty of it myself, and I see it time and again with other product people, is we can have a tendency to have a bit of a superhero complex, and think that whatever comes up, we can fly in and save it. And we've learned all these brilliant frameworks, and we've studied the industry, and we've done our market research and our data analysis, and we can just pull this all together and pull something magical out of the bag. When the reality is, product is so much more than you. It's so much more than the product manager or the product leader. It is the business that has to pull together to make a product successful. And so I think in this particular scenario, having to face the sort of end of the team as we knew it, and it wasn't just the product team. It was there were so many more people affected. So our product and engineering team had grown to sort of 40 people. I can't remember the details, but I think we knew that what we'd end up with is something like 8 engineers and maybe 2 product managers, but with no product leadership. And what would those product managers end up doing, and all that those sorts of questions that would get brought into it. But it's more than that. It's more than product and tech. And I think maybe I definitely was guilty at the time of perhaps making it more about me than I needed to, which was, shit happens, businesses fail, or dramatic events can happen, and we need to navigate it with as much sort of humility and compassion as we can, balancing those sorts of two parts of what's best for the business and what's best for the individual, and I suppose the third part being what's within my control.
Can I just stop you there? Because I mean, you said so many really interesting things, and I think a lot of people can relate. And one that definitely resonates with me, and I guess resonates with many, is you build up a business. You build up like the old product and tech with 40 people, but the same could be you built up your product. You believed in it. You did your research. You put your hours, your sweat, your tears, and then it doesn't work. And the very first thing that you think about is like, what did I do wrong? I mean, that's exactly what you were describing, right? I mean, I should have known better. I should have done more research. I should have picked up the sign. And it becomes almost like personal. Do you have any learnings from your experience on how not to make it personal and how to navigate these situations?
It's interesting you asked this question, and this theme has come up. I'm on a WhatsApp group where a product leader has mentioned going from a very stressful burnout situation into a new role and starting to see the signs come up again, and their reaction is one of stress and overwhelm or anxiety. And so I suppose we do have to start with ourselves in terms of, what are our beliefs here? What are we telling ourselves? So you said, oh, I should have known better, or this shouldn't have happened. Should you have known better? Did you have an opportunity to have this foresight, and did you not do anything about it? Is that true? So I'd start by questioning the beliefs you have about yourself and the statements you're saying to yourself. Is it true, and what evidence do you have to suggest it is or isn't true? Now, if we have a situation where you're saying to yourself, I should have done something differently, and you examine the evidence and actually, yeah, there was probably something there that you could have done differently, then how can you learn from that? What's the learning? How can you take that into the next time? So if there was a red flag that you missed, how can you make sure you don't miss it again? And what would you have done? And maybe go and speak to some other people, mentors or peers that have gone through something similar, to kind of get their learning. So there's that. Then there's is this belief true? And if no, actually, I don't have any evidence to suggest this is true, and this is just an insecurity that's playing, then what was within your control and what was without your control? Because there are multiple people who affect and influence the outcome of the work we do. So if we take a typical product manager, they don't have to necessarily be hugely senior, but they're looking after a product and the feature set that are being built as part of that. And they're in an organization where actually a lot of the work is dictated to them, rather than we're using data to build our confidence in the problems we solve and the solutions we go after. If it's not that, if it's more you have to go and build this and that flops, well, that's not with it. That wasn't within your control. You didn't necessarily have the autonomy to go and do the work. Now, if you did have the autonomy and it didn't work, again, as we said before, what could you have done differently? Let's examine it honestly. Let's get some feedback, but also let's see who else had a responsibility to make it work. I've had to play on this one a lot because my default is to blame myself for things that go wrong. Oh, it must have been me. It's definitely my problem. And I can't remember where I heard it. Knowing me, it's probably been on a Brené Brown podcast because that's where I consume all my all my stuff. But this phrase is in my head around shame, blame, and claim.
Yeah.
And am I shaming myself or shaming anybody else? We don't want to do that. I don't want to blame anyone, but I do want to claim what is my responsibility and what is not my responsibility, and positively move forward from that.
So it's more, if I summarize what I've heard, it's more about understanding what was in my understand what was in my head and what is not, like the things that the responsibilities I put on myself. Then understand if that is in my control or not, and then trying to get some learnings either about something that I could control, or maybe in the situation that you described, I was not in control of deciding what to build, but maybe I can bring the learnings from this failure, if we call it like that, to the person who was, and maybe that could be a learning opportunity.
And I would be mindful as well. So that you playing it back, I think, highlights to me, with everything, there's a balance. And so if it is outside your control, what's reasonable action you could take in the future that might help influence something? So it might not be within your control, but it may still be within your influence. So if we take that PM being handed what they've been told to do, they could sit back and go, well, it wasn't my fault because I was just doing what I was told. What might be better in the future is saying, okay, where can I start demonstrating some of those best practices of product within this environment? So within the limitations I'm operating, where can I perhaps be a little bit more curious? Where can I perhaps start probing if a feature's just given to me? Where can I start saying, why do we believe that this is the right thing to build? Where's the confidence that this is going to give us the outcome? How can we start measuring the outcome of the work we build? So it's about recognizing what's in your control, recognizing what's outside your control, but also recognizing what's in your influence and what you can start doing to sort of build the muscles to build your confidence, so that when things do go wrong again, you can look at yourself honestly and go, I did everything I could, and now I need to take the next steps with compassion and humility and learning, and go on and do it better next time.
And maybe, as you said, understand and put a little bit of ego aside, right? We're not the superhumans that sometimes we believe we are. It's important to understand that things can be out of our control. For example, as you said, it was like a crash in the market. Nothing we could have done to foresee that.
Yeah, I think the ego one's really interesting. So obviously we're talking in a context when things have gone wrong on quite a big scale, but things are going to go wrong all the time. So we are in a industry, in a practice of product where there are lots of people who evangelize about the best way of doing it. And I know, talking to other, like just recently, just last week, I was talking to another product leader who's also a consultant and coach. And we were saying how difficult it is going on LinkedIn and seeing all the content all these brilliant people create, and how that can erode in your own confidence. And you start thinking, oh, I haven't done that, I'm not good enough, this, questioning your worth, and it damaging your ego because you don't feel you're doing it well enough. We can't all be in these unicorn companies that are doing everything right. We just can't. There just aren't that many. And the whole point we refer to them as unicorns is because they're few and far between. So I think there's that mindful thing of you see people doing great work, and there's some fantastic content out there, but use it as inspiration. Use it as, oh, maybe I can try this out, maybe I can't, but not letting that feed into a belief that you have to be doing it to this certain level all the time. I just don't think it's sustainable or realistic. And so then it comes back to what is in your circle of control, what is within your circle of influence, and what is outside of that, and kind of keeping yourself grounded in those ways.
Yeah, and I would also add that definitely plus one of what you said. And it's not only that your context doesn't allow you to do things by the book or how those influencers talk about, but it also becomes what happens when you do it a little bit like how you should be doing, and that doesn't work. That hits you back twice, right? So it's like there's no silver bullet here.
No, and it's hard. Like, it is hard. The whole point of the work we do in product is building confidence in our ideas and our understanding of the problems and solutions we then build as a result. But we never know what's going to work until it's out in the world. And sometimes even then we still don't know why it's worked or why it hasn't worked. It's all just very informed guessing until the point where we get a hard result at the end of it. So it's recognizing that, doing everything we can in our power, but everything in our power needs to come with a limit. It's not to the point of, I mean, Francesca, I'm sure you've seen it as well, the amount of posts on LinkedIn about burnout and all that kind of stuff. Why are we burning out? Things are going to go wrong. And if we keep pushing ourselves like this, there's not going to be any product people left. They're all just going to be like littered around the place, exhausted.
Let's not get there, please. Let's recognize the sign and the zone of influence, and maybe have that a little bit of self-introspection. We aren't superhuman. We shouldn't be superhuman. And when things go wrong, we can take them as a learning opportunity, but mostly about as a way also of checking our own ego.
Check ourselves.
So if I thank you, Pippa, for sharing the things that I take with me from your experience is that when things actually do not go our way, we have to recognize what actually is impacted by us, product manager, and what was part of something bigger, the company or the industry or something we could have not controlled. We can check back with ourselves and understand what was in our control and what wasn't. And for the things that were not in our control, maybe build up a confidence of talking about what were the beliefs that were not met. So we can take some steps forward. But first and foremost, we should not beat ourselves up for when things do not go our way. Anything else that I missed and you want to highlight?
I think on that beliefs one, I think it's a key point, because I think that's the one that when things go wrong, it will feed into what comes next. So when it goes wrong, we need to first of all, we need to take a step back, and we need to take a measured view of what has happened and get some feedback around and do your retrospectives, and then think about those beliefs. What are you telling yourself? What's that narrative that is playing in your head? Because if that narrative, after things go wrong, is this is all my fault, I've messed this up, I should have done better, I'm no good, how is anyone ever going to trust me to do this job again? That is going to just keep tripping you up time and time again. And then it won't need to be a big thing that throws you. It could just be a little thing. And the little thing will feed into that belief, and you start going, see, that's the evidence I needed to show that I wasn't really very good and that I shouldn't have had that job, or I should have done it better. You need to cut that off, and you need to reset the belief. And the belief needs to be more about, with the information I had and the environment I was working, I did the best I could. Now, if that's not true, then you need to go back and think about what needed to change. And then maybe the belief is, I will make changes and I will do X, Y, and Z to give me the confidence to know that I am doing the best I can with what I've got. And rewrite the narrative, because that's really powerful. When things go wrong, we need to be calm and considered and in control of what we can be, so that, especially in a leadership position, we can be the steady rock for everybody else, because there are going to be lots of people who are going to find those sorts of things particularly challenging. And that's where we need to come back to our beliefs and ground ourselves in that. So I think fundamentally that underlines all of it. And when I look back, maybe I didn't do that work on my beliefs the first time, but certainly now I consider myself a lot more resilient in that respect.
Yeah, so that basically you did what you're preaching, right? Like, go back and look what I could do better, and then ground yourself even more. And I believe a lot of what you're describing is, going back to LinkedIn and those flashy headlines when people write, "You're not your work." This is exactly what we mean, right? I mean, detach your self-value from the success of the product you're building and go back to what you believe and literally stand tall on that ground.
Yeah. It's not easy.
It's not easy. Oh, yeah. It's easier said, easier written than done. Oh, God, yeah.
Absolutely. And, I think we all can roll our eyes a bit sometimes when we see some of those posts on LinkedIn, but I do believe in what's being said. You're absolutely right. It's decoupling work from your self-worth. It is hard because we spend most of our time at work.
Yeah.
But when we can do that, and maybe in this particular case where, for me, the big heartbreak of the whole thing falling apart was I'd worked really hard, not on my own, obviously with others, to create this product and tech culture and this whole environment that I, for one, was really proud of. And I feared that the collapse of it undermined all that work. But then when it came to leaving and I got my leaving card, the messages in there were in recognition to what had been created, not how it had ended. It was about the connections people made, the freedom to work, the optimism and sort of vision they could see the company going in had the worst not happened. So I think stepping back and recognizing what's important also helps when in these situations.
That's a great advice, and I think the one I want to close with, like, really, that you're not your work. You can have a lot of positive things and learnings, even when things go as wrong as you described. So thank you so much, Pippa, for answering to this really tough question and being with us.
Thank you so much, Francesca. It's been great fun.
Stop here.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Product Academy Tough Stuff.
We hope today's tough question gave you practical, actionable insights.
If you enjoyed the episode, do us a favor and leave a rating or review. It will help us grow the podcast and make future episodes even better.
Got a question for us? send an email to toughstuff@productacademy.ch and ask away. We read any submission and might answer yours in a later episode.
Thank you again for listening. We'll see you next time with another tough challenge to tackle.
Until then, take care.